Twitter, Google, Microsoft, Dell, Amazon, Yahoo, just to name a few. What's that thing that's common with them? They are big tech companies, right? I totally agree with you. The one other thing that's common with them is that these companies, among others, have participated in massive layoffs and hiring freezes across the nation. This trend started in 2022 and moved into 2023. In fact, there are speculations that there will be more massive layoffs in the tech industry in 2023. That looks bleak, right? Well, what is the impact of these massive layoffs on the individual, the companies, and the tech ecosystem generally? Is there something like that? Is there a way these people who have suffered from the layoffs in the job that they think, is the best that they could ever have, is there any way they can recover from the loss, become gainfully employed, or go into entrepreneurship to, create something to solve a problem in the society where they belong to? These questions will be answered by Pearl Wezigwe, one of the people who were affected by this massive layoff. She was supposed to have a job at Twitter, but she received the call and it changed her forever. For good, I must have to say. How did she move from low to high? She answers the questions.
I was supposed to start working at Twitter. And when I got back to Ireland, like I got the message that I was going to be laid off, which was very shocking because there was a lot of speculations at the time that, there was going to be a new CEO, there's going to be a takeover, a lot of acquisitions. So there was an expectations of like certain shuffles around the company, but I don't think a lot of people thought that like layoffs would be happening, especially with new employees coming in, like they'd already signed their contracts, that kind of stuff. So yes, it was hard. I'm not going to lie. Like I remember just like being in disbelief when I got the call. Like I was very much like the person had started talking and I just went blank and I don't remember anything after. Oh, we're sorry, like that whole stuff. It was definitely hard because there are a lot of factors at play. Considering that I had quit my other job at TikTok to come here, I had also declined another offer with another company to come to Twitter. So it was hard to kind of grapple with the reality of everything because I was ready to start. My laptop had already been sent, so I was just like, okay, what is going on? So I guess the next thing was definitely to figure out, legal, like what are the next legal steps, what does severance look like, benefits, bearing in mind that I'm also an immigrant, how does that affect my staying in Ireland, because you have to have a job to remain in the company, to remain in the country. So it was definitely a lot. I remember talking to my parents, and I think the most comforting things my parents told me was just like, you know what, you have to fight, and like not necessarily fight the company, but you can't just like bury your head down and just cry. Obviously feel your emotions, but right now is the time to just kind of understand like what your benefits are, what you can do moving forward. So yeah, like from an emotional point of view, it was very hard because this company was my dream company. Like anybody who knows me, like I'd always wanted to work there. Like it was not even a congratulations for me. It was very much a finally, like this is it, like this is something I've dreamed of. What are the reasons behind this layoff? When it came with Twitter, it was very much like there was a new CEO coming in. And it's kind of normal that for every time there's a new CEO or there's a change in a lot of like, because there was a lot of plans for him to take the company private. Like he definitely want to cut down on like a lot of expenses. And it's unfortunate that, for a lot of big tech companies, they see expenses as human capital. Like there are so many things they could have done to reduce expenses, and like in terms of cutting down salaries with C-suite executives, or renting office space or selling their office space, but they chose human capital as one of the expenses to reduce. So that definitely was because this is a transition of power and stuff. But with other companies, for example, Facebook, Amazon, what had happened from an economic point of view was that during the pandemic, a lot of people were moved inside. So the need to be online definitely increased. We were in the pandemic, we were in lockdown for almost 2 years. So we're ordering stuff online, we were dancing on TikTok, Instagram, all these platforms. We're definitely just being online. So revenue, ads, everything increased, right? But now it's definitely, there's a dip. Not the biggest dip, but obviously with the whole speculation of like recession and stuff, these companies have realized that they had overhired during that 2-year period, and obviously to meet up with the demands and everything. So now that there's a recession, they're a public company, they have shareholders to answer to. Even though these shareholders they still make a lot of money with or without these costs.
This is where we're going to talk about how it impacts the people.
In the short term, like the mental health of people are definitely going to take a dive. In the long term, like the immigration impact is just going to be very devastating. Like we're going to see another set of brain drain in these areas. So let's say if it was Dublin, that was a very huge hub for immigrants. Like we're definitely going to see a brain drain where people are going to start leaving the country, just because like they can't afford to stay in the country. One, the cost of living is high. Two, you need a visa, a valid visa to be in the country. Obviously, taxes that they're going to get from income tax will definitely be reduced because not many people are going to be paying taxes anymore. So there's all that long-term effect. But on the plus side, there's also the fact that people, the whole quiet resigning has definitely become a thing where people are beginning to see that these companies don't really care. And I think it's definitely the Generation Z that brought up that whole mindset of like, I'm not going to be in a company that doesn't care about my mental health. And then more importantly, like entrepreneurship, but people are definitely going to start leaning into like your creative side and like, okay, well, this has been my identity for so long. What can I do in order to make ends meet?
Here goes job security in the bin. Now, for people who are there, for the ones who really don't have the entrepreneurship bone in their body,
Yeah,
can they get to bounce back? Because it's very important that we don't have a crop of demoralized people in the tech ecosystem. You know how important technology is to life and how controlling it can be. You don't want people with such, demoralized mindset to
exactly
to talk to us.
The good news is that because of these layoffs from big companies, I think companies are also learning not to overstaff. So whatever budget that they're making right now, it's more of, hey, if we're going to just need 5 people, we're just going to hire 5 people. Like, let's not do too much so that we don't end up affecting these people in the long term, right? So I think people are making more conscious decisions than before, than saying, oh, let's just hire 10 people when they actually needed 5, right? So I think, people who have been laid off can go into these interviews feeling a bit more confident. Obviously, you need to ask these questions like, hey, what is the retention rate like? Like, are you guys having any financial issues that I need to be aware of? Because you don't want to be hit twice, like in back to back, like you don't want to go into something. So it'd be good to just like know what's that, like the company's framework and what plans they also have if they need to lay off people.
Fantastic and spot on, Pearly. Thank you so much for that, especially that part where you need to also let the company understand the company's policy when it comes to retrenchment and firing.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of people go into company and they never ever say, okay, are you guys going to fire me at some point? Especially when the HR manager asks you, or the interviewer asks you, do you have any question for us? You just say no, or you just ask questions based on the proof that you have. So I like that perspective that you give is actually a lesson for everyone who definitely could, not just within the tech ecosystem or the tech industry, as it were, for every other person. So you mentioned earlier on that you do something through your platform to help people get jobs, and I want to believe that is as a result of more like the output from the experience that you had. Talk to us about the platform that you do.
Right now, I'm very much like using my LinkedIn to just talk about, like, first of all, tech policy. Like, I've dubbed myself the Beyonce of tech policy because I'm a huge fan of Beyonce. But more importantly, it's just my way of, I guess, being very relatable, because I realized that the space is still very much saturated with older people, and there are not a lot of young professionals who are aware of the space. And I was able to get, not just 1, but 2 other jobs in this space, within 3 years. So I think like right now I'm just kind of using my platform to talk about this area. Like, okay, there's a need for tech policy. There's a need for trust and safety. With all these new technologies coming up, there needs to be safety by design, because governments are not clamping down on it. They want to see, what are you doing to protect this user? What are you doing with your data? What are you doing when we see hate speech or nudity or misinformation with the elections coming up and all that? So there is a need for this. And so what I'm just using my platform is just to educate. Like, so every day, I'm just on like my LinkedIn. If you can follow me, Pearl Wezigwe, and I just post stuff. And now I'm creating a newsletter as well, with the hopes to have like a bank of, okay, these are the things that are happening in tech policy. These are the things that you need to be aware of. This is how you practice for an interview. This is how you tailor your resume. So it goes beyond just, me sharing jobs, but also like, how does your resume need to look like? How do you need to prepare for an interview? What does your first 30 days look like in the job? That kind of stuff. So that is what I'm hoping to do, to just kind of demystify what tech policy is about.
Thank you so much, Pearl Wezigwe, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
One of the other things we would see is that people would have more faith in tech companies.
Tech Hub, for a smarter you.